Hello, everyone. I am Christina Veltri, and I'm here with Matt and Christina Magro. Welcome to the Please Hustle Responsibly podcast. This podcast was made by industry folks for industry folks to give them tools to better advocate for themselves within the workplace. Today we have a very special guest. We have DJ Watson with us, who I'll let you tell us about you. I know who you are.
Cool.
But
Sure. No pressure. Right. So my name is DJ Watson. I'm a marriage and family therapist here in Chicago, Illinois. I also have worked in the service industry here, worked in River North for about 8 years. So I have some history bartending, serving, bouncing. People are surprised sometimes that I'm a therapist and a bouncer. They wonder how those fit together. Some of my kind of specialties are I work with obviously individual clients, but couples and families. So life changes, LGBTQIA issues, gender, same-sex relationships, cultural issues. Sometimes I have clients from different races and cultures they're trying to figure it out. And then again, anxiety, depression, all of that kind of stuff, and anything that just goes with being stressed and being in relationships.
Awesome.
Oh, and I'm the education director.
Yeah.
Yes, that's important also.
I was going to say, and you are very important to support staff.
Yes.
Awesome. I forgot to do my check-in, so I just want to see how everyone's doing. I'll check in with you first, DJ. How have you been? What's new?
I've been doing okay, despite all the crazy circumstances that are going on. Life is going fairly good. I am a therapist who works remotely. So luckily, even though I don't have my bar job, I do still have my therapy job. So, still working. Good stuff. So going okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Cool. Mags, how have you been? What's new?
I've been good. I've just been, figuring this all out. I am trying to remain positive with my thoughts and the things that I'm putting out into the universe. My family is like super big on Christmas. So, this is just kind of like an interesting time of year to not see them, but that's why I'm really excited to have this conversation with DJ today. But yeah, I am really ready for 2020 to end. So
Same.
So
not that I think 2021 is going to be better.
Well, yeah, I just I don't know why, but I'm like clean slate, maybe moving into like a new place, so hopefully like turning a new leaf and some kind of things of life. So I'm looking forward to some things, I guess. What about you, Matt Cole? How are you doing over there?
I'm doing well. Had a very pre-COVID like feeling normal week last week. I worked pretty much every day, which haven't done that in 9 months, so that was kind of interesting, and didn't really have any time to focus on anything other than that, but that was cool. And I got to work a pop-up with some of our dear friends, Andy and Ben, which was super great, and getting to spend time with them was really fun and always rewarding. And now I'm just kind of figuring out what I'm gonna do for the holidays, which is probably not going to be much. But how are you, Veltri?
I am great. I'm staying super busy, taking a lot of photos, just finding, joy in whatever I can.
Matt, I have a question for you. You said your last week felt like really pre-COVID, like with the amount of work that you were doing.
Yeah.
Did that feel good? Did that feel overwhelming? Like, how did that feel? Was it easy to get back into the swing of things, or was it like a little tough?
I would say a little mixture of it all. Like there were times where I was like, man, I haven't had time to do things that I want to do. I haven't had like my time to like do like my morning workout felt really rushed, or like, waking up in the morning and making a glass of tea and reading and having that time for these new like kind of rituals I've made for myself felt rushed and not as maybe like enjoyable as they were. Maybe felt like more like a something that I needed to do, and the structure of that was could be a little overwhelming. But it also was nice to like have all of these things to focus on and not worry about everything else going on around me for a couple days.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I mean, I definitely don't want to go back to working 6-7 days a week. But
one week of it's okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's reverse of what it used to be. It's like you used to work 6-7 days a week all the time and then get like maybe a week off. Now you have like 6-7 months off and then you get to work a week, which is
Yeah.
life.
Yeah, just very different feeling. Like there were good and bad things, but like I said, like it was I was working with. It was fun to do those things, and it was a good, I guess, kind of escape from everything that's been going on. But I'm happy to have some time to relax and take it a little easier this week.
Awesome. So today, we wanted to talk to DJ about the holidays, the season, the stress of the holidays. So I'm going to kick it off with a few questions. As we know, the holidays are already so stressful, even in a normal year, and there's so much weight on how to do it right. So how do you think everyone's been dealing with the financial stress along with the incapability to be with family?
Yeah, I know. I mean, it is a really difficult time, right? And I think it makes sense to keep that in context. I won't curse because I don't know if I can curse on here or not.
Oh, you can curse.
You can say whatever you
All right.
want.
Okay. Yeah. So this is great. So this will be just like a therapy session for me, right? So I've been telling clients, right? It feels like shit is going crazy right now, right? And that's not because you're doing a bad job. That's because shit is actually going crazy right now. And so I think, it's a really different time, right? Again, um, I'll joke sometimes and say, if last year a client had told me like, hey, me and my partner are planning on quitting our jobs, not really going to work, just working from home, not leaving, not seeing anybody, and just staying together for pretty much 8 months next year, I'd have been like, are you crazy? Or like, what's wrong with you, right? This week, I'm like, well, great job. Yeah, continue to like, I think, I always remind people that, finding that balance and trying to like balance at any time is always really hard. Usually the holidays cause more stress, again, because of like family, finances, all of that type of thing, right? And then add on top of that, right, the coronavirus and the pandemic, maybe social unrest, right? We've had several chances to have really hard conversations or really learn a lot about people that maybe don't usually stuff we don't get into, like race or finances or politics, right? All of that stuff has really been laid out. And so I think, just first remembering it is harder this year, right? And that's okay. If it wasn't harder, then there would be something wrong, right? If you just were going through life like everything was normal, like a regular year, that would be a big indicator that something's wrong, right? So I just kind of remind people to, take some space, right? Remember that this is a very weird moment, right? I often talk to people and I say, it's not about finding that thing that is the golden ticket. Willy Wonka is one of my favorite movies, right? It's not about finding that thing that's the golden ticket. Even in that movie, right, the golden ticket wasn't the golden ticket, right? It didn't actually get them what they want, right? I usually talk to people about scaling, right? Nobody's their best when they're at like a 7. It's not, that I can't have those feelings, right? I can't be stressed. I can't be angry. Right? Worry less about trying to get back to normal or flip a switch or find that magic thing, right? But how do I get that from an 8 to like a 6, where then, the thoughts aren't racing and I can bring in my brain and remember oh, I'm going to call a friend, right? Or I can say, oh, I'm going to go for a walk, or something like that, right? So for everybody, that kind of little thing is different. But I try to remind people, don't worry that it's not, a 0. That's okay. That wouldn't be a normal place on the scale to be at, right? And then how do I manage it some, right? Enough, right? How do I bring that thing down enough so then I can use the tools and the skills I already have, right? You already have some. You don't have to go out and, read a self-help book or completely change your life and do everything new. Right? You might want to, some people might want to, but you don't necessarily have to. You've gotten some skills that got you this far, right? So how do I build up a little bit more support to get me from like that 8 to a 6 where it's manageable? My dog agrees also.
I agree as well. I love that. I like have a secret collection of self-help books that like I honestly think I've read like one of them, but I get in those moments where I'm like, and then I'm like, how to be happy.
Yeah.
How would you recommend like talking to family about feeling uncomfortable going home, especially if you are looking out for their health and safety?
Yeah, this has been a big one, right? I've had lots of families and couples, and even my individual clients, talk about that, especially with not so much in the summer months, but right after Thanksgiving, with that having passed, where it can be really difficult. Again, you have a lot of different maybe views or things colliding or clashing that maybe don't normally, right? Maybe I don't normally talk to grandparents about my political views or this thing, and all of a sudden, right, those things are coming head to head because they're expecting you to come home, or mom or dad, right? And I'm going, I don't really want to be there. Or maybe not, I don't want to be there, but I don't feel like that's the best thing to do, to be there. So it is really hard, right? I think, one of the first things to do is to try to open up a dialogue, right? Find somebody in your family who you feel like, you'd be able to have a talk with, maybe genuinely about that, right? And it might not be, my parents about going home. I might sister or brother and saying like, are you going? But I would say, start finding some space for family dialogue. Everything does not always have to be in agreement, right? I usually tell people the base of learning to work together is being heard and understood. That's the most important thing. And I use a Chicago example all the time, right? I say, I can be a Cubs fan and you can be, or Margot can be a Sox fan. I don't know. I want to call it the wrong team and get in trouble, right? Right? I can be a Cubs fan and you can be a Sox fan. And we can coexist in the same house, right? As long as I'm not trying to drag you to every game. I'm not telling you how much better, my shortstop is than your shortstop, right? I'm not buying you, Cubs stuff for Christmas when you want Sox stuff, right? Just giving you space, right? I don't necessarily have to agree with you. I don't have to necessarily meet you there, but to give you space to be like heard and understood. And I think, that's usually the place where I would say like kind of try to start there, right? Find somewhere where you can be heard and understood, right? You can have maybe somebody to bounce some questions or some ideas off of, somebody to talk to about your genuine concerns, right? And that can be like almost a little practice run, right? For maybe talking with the bigger family or say, so, or even, if there's specific circumstances that are going to be different, right? Sometimes, it's a little bit easier if they go, well, so-and-so's coming home. Like, well, yeah, I talked to that cousin and they work from home and they're going to be off for 2 weeks, but I got to go into work and be around people. So that's why I'm not coming to make you come, right? So yeah, I'll stop there because, I talk a lot, but I don't know. There you go.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. Mags, are you gonna use that?
I am going to use that. Sorry, I put on mute because I don't know if you can hear my dog snoring, but I am going to use that because everyone in my family is working from home or like out of work because my brother's a laborer. So there's a lot of babies. Both my brothers had babies during this, and I'm just really nervous I'm really nervous to get these children sick
Mhm.
because they have zero immune system, and coming from Chicago where like our rates are pretty high. Even though like I've been responsible, my circle's really small. I just like would never be able to forgive myself if that happened. Plus, I I'm a twin, so my twin especially is just like not having it, and he's like a Christmas fiend, and he has like 6 Christmas trees in his house, and he loves it. But for me, I'm just more of a realist, and I was like, Skylar's never going to know that I was not there on the first Christmas. Like she's 1 year old, it's going to be okay, you know. That's all the
So
point.
yeah, so Mark, let me ask you a question I ask clients sometimes, right? Because we'll talk like this, right? And I'll go, oh yeah, this sounds so great in a perfect world, right? I'm gonna make a connection with somebody, and they're gonna, validate me and stand up for me to the family, and everything's gonna work perfect. And then I go, in real life that doesn't happen, right? And I always go, so like, what are the landmines, blind spots, potholes, right? When the rubber meets the road, when I try this, right? What's that kind of secondary piece that you worry about, right? I think that the navigating, the knowing what to say, you're really smart, you're intelligent, you're well spoken. I think you can do that, but it's probably something else. It's like, I'm gonna try that, and then what's gonna happen afterwards? Like, is everybody gonna hate me? Are they gonna blow up? Is mom gonna curse me out? Like, what's the next thing that you worry about? Like when I maybe tell people or try to tell that.
Well, I come from an Italian family, so I'm not trying to put us all in a bubble, but my family loves to hold grudges. So it's like, I know I miss this Christmas, but like every other Christmas that I show up to now, it doesn't even matter because they're going to be like, oh, you missed Christmas last year. But that's a great question because to be honest, what I am actively avoiding, and you just made me confront it, is
Sorry.
No. This is what this is for. I have different views than the majority of my family, especially when it comes to politics, and that has been like a point of contention for like the past year, and I find myself like actively going in there being like, okay, you're not even going to cross this bridge, but somehow I find myself 3 hours later crossing the bridge, and I'm like, no. How did we get
Yeah. Oh, we've all been there. That's what families are made for. They pull it out of you when you don't want it. That's exactly what they do to you.
So I feel like this year specifically has just been so mentally taxing and exhausting than to like, I feel like my presence might rile some folks up. So I might as well just use coronavirus as an excuse not to participate this year.
Yeah. And now they're going to be all listening to this podcast. And
yeah, right.
So yeah, right. Well, yeah. So that makes sense, right? So 2 other tips I'll give you. I'm not going to like therapize you here in front of everybody. But yeah, right. So with that, I would say a lot of times I tell people what really scares us is the unknown, right? As humans, as people, we can plan for the bad thing, right? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna be, if we had known, 6 years ago in 2020, you're gonna be out of work and have to stay home, we would have all been in bigger houses and had more money saved and all of that, right? We would have hated it, but we would have been ready, right? It's the unknown. It's the when I'm gonna go back to work, where am I gonna live, all of that stuff, right? And so what I tell people is sometimes kind of figure out what that pothole, blind spot, landmine thing is, right? The thing that feels really scary to touch. And, think about, right, what's going to happen with that, like kind of worst case scenarios? Because once you start putting the scenarios out there, you can figure out, plans for that, right? So if, again, I don't know how it would look in your family, right? But if Christmas is a really important thing and people might hold grudges and I know I'm not going, maybe I want to do something smaller, personalized, right? Maybe I want to take a special picture and have a special card for everybody or something and say, sorry, missed you 2020 because of this reason, right? There's still ways that I know how to connect with my family. you know, individually that could be more meaningful than just, you know, a generic card or, you know, having to spend a bunch of money on something, right? Maybe I got a lot of time for crafts now, right? And I can make some really personal stuff, right? So, you know, think about like, what's that thing that's going to get in the way when I try it, right? And then, yeah, you can probably start coming up with some ideas, right? I think the family politics piece is also a whole piece. You could probably come up with some ideas. Spent many a therapy sessions dealing with that with people, so I won't get too far into that. But yeah, I think, you know, you're on the right path, right? It's not necessarily that I can't figure it out, right? It's just keep going down those steps, keeping balance. So good stuff.
Thank you. That's great advice.
Yeah, that is great advice. I have so many more questions, but this will quickly turn into a therapy session. So I'll stick to the script. I want to talk about why I've noticed that this time of year is so hard for so many people. And, you know, like I personally have lost a lot of people around this time of year. So I've always like justified it by that. But I'm curious about like what studies there are about why the holiday season and the months surrounding it are so difficult for so many people.
Mm-hmm. Sure, Matt, you gonna take this one?
I'm
joking. I got it. All right.
I was like, whoa.
He's like, was I supposed to study that? All right, no, I'm kidding. Yeah, right. So again, I think the holidays in general are more difficult a lot of times, and there's a couple reasons behind that. I think for a lot of people, it is. And by a lot of people, I just mean a lot of people on the earth. It's the confluence of, special occasions, holiday seasons, this October through January, February, almost every religion has a major holiday or two, every country, right? So it's times that we're used to being around people, right? Being connected, specifically thinking of, how we were raised in our family. So whether that was really good, right? How do I say this? That little anxiety, like negative feeling on my shoulder, I usually mess with clients and I say it's like the angel and the devil, right? There's the logic over here who goes, yeah, my sister loves me. But then there's the other part that goes like, you sent her a message later on her birthday after you saw her Instagram, so she hates you, right? That guy is really good at attaching to whatever and making us feel negative about it, right? So I could have had a really lovely family, a really great experience. Maybe the holiday season reminds me of them, and I'm not with them this year, or somebody's passed away, or things aren't how they used to be, just because our family's like grown older, people have moved away, right? And then maybe I feel sad about missing out on that and being around there, right? I could have had a horrible family experience, been on my own, had to do a lot by myself, which doesn't necessarily mean it was a horrible family experience, but maybe a horrible family experience, right? And then remember the holidays and think about my horrible family and be sad and be depressed, right? So to our past, to that sense of connection and seeing almost everywhere we look, right? It everywhere popping up all the time, right? We think of like coronavirus like that now, but once we enter holiday season, like you're seeing every holiday pop up, every ad, all of that stuff. So, that can be really difficult. So most of the stuff that I've seen has been kind of, tied to some of that. Again, in the northern hemisphere up here, there's might be the change in seasons as well. There's kind of that seasonal affective disorder. I know for me, it getting dark at like 4 o'clock here in Chicago has really been blowing my mind every day. I think I'm like up super late and it's 6 p.m. So yeah, I think those are some of the things that I think of.
Awesome. You segued right into my next question, which is regarding seasonal affective disorder and the science behind it, like the realism of it, and exactly what you said, like, are we affected differently than the Southern Hemisphere because, they have milder winter. I mean, some of them have milder winters and more sunshine.
Great questions. These are great questions. Matt, I'm gonna toss it over to you. This dumb joke.
No, I mean actually, well,
Yeah,
I
I'm
was gonna
actually.
say,
Yeah.
when I lived in New Orleans, I noticed in the summertime it was kind of like here in the wintertime. With the oppressive heat, people are like inside, blinds drawn, lights down, and
Mhm.
it's not as like it's not as active as it is the rest of the year. They're just like avoiding being outside because it's so hot. And I don't know if it's like exactly the same, but it was just something that I noticed. I was having this conversation the other day. It's just like very reminiscent of like winters here.
Mhm. Yeah, I grew up in the South too. I think we talked about it. I'm from Arkansas, and so yeah, very much the same. Like Southern Arkansas, just super hot, super gross. I remember I moved here, and they were like, "It's been above 90 for 5 days. That's a 10-year record." And I was like, "That's like August where I'm from. What are you talking
Yeah.
about? 5 days? You guys are losing it." Um, so yeah, right. I think definitely the how do I say this, right? The change in seasons, it really does affect us. I think of it kind of similar to thinking of like maybe like jet lag, right? Where all of a sudden that time shift happens, right? And we can feel it in our bodies and we're just not quite like balanced and it takes some time. So I think, the same thing does actually happen to us in the winter, and we actually, shift the times forward and back, right? So we do have that kind of almost similar to maybe like the jet lag feeling. I know I do anyway, right? So for seasonal affective disorder, though, also it's has to do with usually that availability as well. Again, with the time change and shift for people with like sunlight, being outside, right, like feeling that warmth, right, soaking up the vitamin D that we get from the sun. So there's several things that people can do if you feel like you're struggling with that. I think again during the coronavirus, that might be a little bit more tougher for all of us, right? Maybe usually it's not such a big deal, but now it feels, even bigger than usual because of, I'm always inside now and I didn't get to spend summer going to festivals and eating great food and all of that stuff, right? So yeah, I think, there's lots of ways to kind of deal with it. Again, I always tell people to try something small, right? Don't necessarily go and from 0 to 10, I got to go out and buy a full service tanning subscription or whatever, buy a tanning bed, right? But there's some small things you can do. Rearranging your room sometimes, right? Rearranging the space, especially now after we've been in there so long, right? The way the space sets up, especially if it's the same space you work in and you play in and you eat in and you try to do family stuff in, right? And try to relax, right? That yeah, maybe a change up to the space might be nice, right? Again, there's stuff like even the little floor sun lamps, like UV lamps, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I'll leave it there. I don't know if you guys have tried any of that stuff and it's worked or doesn't, or you guys also have that, but I'll turn it back over to you guys.
And I've been trying to wake up a little bit earlier to get more of the sunlight, but that's not always possible working. I mean, everyone has different schedules, but I mean anything in these winters, and I'm sure like there was a couple years of like the winter time
Yeah.
being very off-putting almost at first.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. I joke with people, and I'm sure this happened to you in New Orleans, right? There were days, I don't know if you went to school down there. There were days where school got canceled because it might snow tomorrow. I remember
Yeah.
specifically, they were like, it might snow tomorrow, so we're gonna cancel school today, and it did not snow. So yeah, having to go outside and wait on a bus in 6 inches of snow is not ideal for me. But yeah, I think again, it's one of those things everybody's a little bit different.
So how, now that we know that like there's little steps to take, I think that all of those are great ideas. Like, my friend has a lot of plants, so she has like the UV light, and I was like, oh my God, I should get one of these. This really not only makes your house look really cool, it also seems like it probably helps a lot. But as a person who deals with like pre-existing mental illness as well as seasonal affective disorder, do you have any tips or tricks, or like how to identify between the two? Like, am I just having normal seasonal depression, or am I starting to go into like
Yeah.
a full-on manic depressive episode?
Yeah, for sure, right? I got you. One thing I'll plug support staff, because we do have, just in general for everybody, a list of therapists who are willing to work with people in the service industry at like low discount, like pro bono rates. I just set up some people a few weeks ago with therapists, so there's still people taking people if you need, some support. That's one more thing you can do. What's the other piece, right? I think again for me, it matters less of what is causing it and more where I am on the scale, right? Um, I usually tell people kind of one of the ways I know that something is becoming a struggle, right? Is those skills that I talk about that we have, right? Are we overusing them, underusing them, or misusing them, right? And so, like, I think when I'm noticing people starting to do that, right, that can be a time that I say, oh, it looks like, you must be getting to like an 8 or a 9 on the scale, right? You're employing this thing a lot more often. So let's say, for example, you might be introverted and really need some of that time alone and time to yourself, right? But if all of a sudden I'm noticing like everything makes me want time alone, right? When I'm sad, I need time alone. When I'm, angry, I need time alone, right? Yeah, use time alone at some of those times, right? But if it's the thing that I'm always going to every time, right? Okay, then that's telling me that it's not being super effective, right? That the skills that I'm using aren't super helpful, right? I maybe want to drink after work. Completely okay, right? But the issue only, drinking becomes issue when I drink when I'm sad and when I'm angry and when I'm lonely, right? Or I have to drink all the time throughout the day. Right? So overusing it, underusing it, misusing it, right? So I think for me, it's less of necessarily having to diagnose yourself of what's going on, right? Because maybe it is something just like seasonal affective disorder, right? It doesn't feel super severe, but it feels like it's taking you from your normal place of maybe like a person who has some anxiety at like maybe a 6 who can normally deal with it to an 8, right? And it's causing more stress in your life. You can say, I think maybe I just want to, talk with the therapist like once a month, right? I have clients who meet with me once a month or once every 2 weeks, right? You might say, oh, I think I need to, start maybe up my workout routine a little bit more, right? Because there's always some things you can do to try to lower that, right? So for me, it's less on, where my diagnosis is at, because I've worked with people with like all kind of diagnoses, schizophrenia, depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, right? All of that stuff. And it's about, again, it's about managing it, right? It's about, I tell people, my clients a lot, it's about finding that balance, right? We often think that balance is a place I'm going to get to, right? Well, when I get this thing, or when I have this skill, or when I have this person in my life or this job, then I'll be there. And I remind people that, like, by definition of the word, balance is not a permanent state, right? It's a moving one. Like, there has to be some give and take and tension and all of those type of things. And I remind people it's like a tightrope walker, right? A good person, if they're walking down a tightrope, it's not completely still. They have probably that huge stick out, and they're leaning back and forth a little bit, and they're swinging, right? And they're making small adjustments, right? And sometimes the wind might blow a little bit harder, and oh my God, it's 2020 and there's coronavirus and I lost my job, right? And it might push me a little bit more out of step than I want, right? But being able to have good balanced life is being able to move and make those adjustments, right? And understanding that I got to keep making it, right? Again, going back to that example I used earlier, right? A good balanced relationship last year was not one that looks like a good balanced relationship this year, right? Completely different. So, what was good has completely changed. And if I've been building skills over here, on this one, it's going to take me some time to move from, like, maybe if we worked really well together as a couple or as a partner or even as roommates, because we were super independent and had our own lives and did our own things, and now we're stuck together all the time, it's going to take a little while to build those skills, right? So it's about, for me, it's more about seeing like where I am on that scale and how am I using my skills. Am I overusing them, underusing them, misusing them? Am I starting to feel stuck? Like I'm running out of options, right? Figuring out stuff myself. And that's kind of the time I say, reach out for some support. And again, they can look whatever you want it to look like based on, theories, philosophies, spiritual practices, races, religions, cultures, ethnicities, whatever, you want, whatever you want that to look like, right? but reach out, see if it works, right? And then if something doesn't work, try something else. Or, that might be the time to say, oh, well, let me bring in somebody for a little bit of help here since it feels like I'm still getting stuck. I don't know if that answered your question, but hopefully it did.
Yes, it did. Do you think that COVID, like the COVID fatigue, is going to have influence on how mild or severe cases of seasonal affective disorder are?
Yeah, I would say it's probably I don't know if I would call it might be COVID fatigue. I'm assuming it would be some of that for people. Some other people, it might just be long stress. But yeah, I think, it's going to be a tougher season, mentally and emotionally for most of us. Again, just because the world of COVID brings in so many of those factors, right? The world of COVID brings in, I'm in my house more, right? The world of COVID maybe brings in thinking about mortality or loss of death more. Maybe I've actually lost somebody, right? It brings in a actual, real separation from family, right? As Mark was saying, right? I actually physically can be with my family. I don't, maybe even if I don't, know how much I want to be with them, I at least like to have the option or to be with some of them, and maybe now I can't, right? So I think, it's gonna be difficult just because kind of it exacerbates those main stressors around the holidays, which are maybe separation, again, anxiety, depression, right? And I think with everything that's going on, lots of us are focusing more on that than usual, and not as many, distractions, right? I'm not maybe distracted by going to work and doing a shift or being able to go out and have a weekend with my friends. So stuff like that. So yeah, I think it'll be, more difficult. I don't think, necessarily means it's going to be impossible, but again, just trying to be prepared and kind of be aware of like what that means as a person and what I'm going to need to adjust, right, to stay in balance, because it is going to be, a different season and maybe some difficult ways that I'm not used to.
Okay, so as we've discussed, like everybody's been cooped up for a very long time. I'm gonna guess everybody's done all of the puzzles in their house and either read or avoided every single book in their house. And it's probably doing like, as many variations of workouts as they can. I kind of want to toss this out to everyone because I just think that it would be good to hear. Like, how's everybody staying busy mentally and physically fresh? I'm not doing a good job, so I'm really asking this for me. I'm gonna pass it to you first, DJ.
Me first? I'm gonna go. I feel like I'm gonna let you guys go first because I feel like, yeah, people just agree with me. Yeah, I'm gonna pass it to Marks first. I'm gonna hot potato it off if I can do that.
Yeah.
For me, how I've been staying mentally and physically fresh is the question.
Yeah, like you probably have had like, different times throughout this where you were like feeling dope and then you're like, oh, I'm kind of like losing it, and then you're like, but I'm gonna find something else, and then you like find that new thing, and so like we know it's a roller coaster. So like, how are we gonna switch it up to like keep going?
So as a person who kind of like lost sight of hobbies in the grind of the food and beverage industry, I have taken this opportunity to like try to find some hobbies and also try to do what DJ mentioned earlier, because I was trying to make everyone's Christmas presents this year because I thought it would be like a more thoughtful gift. So I've been trying a whole bunch of stuff. To be fair, I'm not a very patient person when I'm bad at something. So I'm just like, oh, I'm just never going to knit, or like everybody's going to get scarves in 2023. And that's just what's happening. So I'm not the best knitter. I saw a bunch of people making earrings. So I was like, oh, I can totally do that. Mad respect to everyone out there making these clay earrings, because I'm really not the best at that, but something that something that has stuck is I got a bunch of terracotta clay and I'm making like pinch pots and I'm putting like little succulents in them for everybody. It's really reminiscent of like what you did in art when you were maybe in 5th grade. But I also have a dog that's incredibly needy. Cuddles and love, so that always helps. But to be honest, there was a pretty dark period for me where I was just like, I have a very specific set of skills. I don't really know what I'm going to do outside of this industry, et cetera, et cetera. So I decided that I will only talk to myself in a positive way because I'm really good at the negative self-talk and I like spiral. So I'm done spiraling. I'm only really worrying about like the things that I can control. I'm trying to remain like positive and optimistic. I like take every small victory as a huge win now, and trying to focus less about like what the big picture looks like and just focus on like what I can do in this direct time that is either going to like feed my soul, give me some knowledge, make my brain stop, or just relax, So I'm trying. I'm trying all the things. I have a lot of plants, though. I know we mentioned this a lot. I feel like plants are very satisfying, watching that like growth. And in Chicago especially, it's like a never-ending battle. I feel like in the Chicago months to like rearrange, get the sunlight, make sure it's not too cold by the window, So it sounds so lame, but that's what I'm doing. And trying to volunteer more. So volunteering my time and the things that I have to people that are trying to do really good things within Chicago. And it's like, I could sit around and try to analyze what's going to come in the future that I have no control over, or I can go find some toilet paper for grocery run club, so I think trying to find things that fulfill that like gratification that I used to get from the food and beverage industry, but like in other ways. And I found for me, community is what's been helping me a lot. It's like physically helping people directly in my community. So
I love that.
yeah.
Matt,
what are you doing? Oh, okay.
Are you about to, I already told you I'm not doing very well at any of this. I've pretty much been working this whole time. So even if it was remotely, just like doing weird projects to try and stay busy for work so that they could like pay us. But yeah, I like never went through that first phase of like, I'm going to deep clean my apartment. Like I just did that a week ago and I was like, all right. So really I'm looking for pointers because I'm like, what's gonna happen? Matt, what are you doing? How are you keeping it fresh?
I've been like working on myself a bunch, which has been really nice. Like I started working out every day at home, just doing like various workouts, and that was like my morning routine, like wake up, get going and like do that, which has been really nice. And I feel like for the past like however long I've been I like to like be a cheerleader and like am very giving and don't necessarily focus on the things that are like making me feel down or on things that are like my own personal problems. So I've just been trying to take the time to focus more on that and also allowing myself more time to just relax and chill and try to not feel bad about it. I think that's something that we can all kind of relate to, especially working in hospitality, like that go, 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 go. If you're not working this much, you're not doing enough. If you're not doing this, you're not doing enough. So just like giving myself the freedom to sit on the couch and watch a movie and not think about like the things that I'm not doing has been really nice. And then also, like Magro was saying, I've really upped my plant game since quarantine started, which has been like monumentally changing for me. Like I had a couple before, it was kind of like, oh, these are cool, and now I'm like, this one's blooming, and this one's got a new leaf coming out, and I'm so hyped on that. And here's my little humidity station for my tropical plants, and this one's doing good. And then I get really upset when I have one that's kind of a diva, doesn't seem as happy, so I just focus on that a lot. But it's been really nice to have that kind of thing like in my house and like interact with that on a daily basis. That's been, I don't know, I feel like it's been like a good period of like personal growth for myself.
DJ.
Let me see. I've been pretty busy also, so it hasn't been too much of the like stir craziness. I think definitely for sure not doing as good on the health. There was a couple months in the summer where I like got a bike like everybody else, and I was like, I'm gonna start riding my bike places, and then I got like a flat tire, so then I didn't really I rode it for a little while. I think kind of for me trying to stay in that space, it's a lot of what you guys are saying, like Matt and Marks, of having perspective and seeing things differently. My type of therapy that I do is called narrative therapy, and it's really about like kind of looking at our stories and taking perspective out of those to be able to make change. So sometimes I use this example with people, and I say, if you wanted to say you were going to go on a diet and stop eating meat for a month, you could totally do that, right? Or you could become vegetarian. And I go like the physical difference in the month, right? The practical difference, I didn't put any meat in my mouth, is the same, right? But the mental difference, right? Oh my God, oh my gosh, another Popeye's chicken sandwich, whatever, right? Versus, what do you guys have on the menu? Where are we going to eat at, right? That it's not necessarily saying that, the challenges are easy to overcome, right? Or difficult, but it's just kind of my mindset is like, this challenge is part of my journey versus like this thing is holding up my journey, getting in my way, right? And so I know, like Marcus said, like, finding, hobbies, like stuff like that is always like fun, interesting, important. Tending the plants, whatever that is, right? I usually, for me, say, tie it to something that's either important to you, like mentally, like for growth, right? Emotionally, that's going to help you, stay balanced. Again, like talking to plants, help them grow, definitely proven, right? To help people stay balanced, right? Physically, for my body, right? Or spiritually, right? Which doesn't necessarily mean religious, but like connection-wise, right? Something that's going to help me feel like I'm in the right place in the world and connected to the right people. And I say, try stuff those things. It's a little bit easier to kind of keep it going, right? If I can tie, going on, I'll use like a diet thing, right? Going on this diet so I can fit in my prom shirt versus like going on this diet because my doctor says I have to, because I have high cholesterol, and if I want to live to see my grandkids, I'm going to need to do it, right? Well, the second reason is I'm a little bit more likely, right? I've tied it to that important thing to me. And so, I tell people to look for stuff in those areas that's, somewhere where you want to go anyway. Again, it super sucks to be stuck in 2020. None of us wanted to like be in the middle of this. But if I was being like super therapist, bright perspective, right? And I was to say, all right, well, next year I'm going to make sure you have almost unlimited time to pursue whatever goals you want, and go do anything. You don't have to worry less about work or getting fired. This thing, that thing. It might sound pretty good on the surface, right? And be like, oh, there's so much I can accomplish. Now, in real life, it's not like that. There's a lot of pressure and stress and anxiety. So like Matt said, I had to kind of adjust my perspective on, again, like what is productive, right? Like, a productive day might mean I got 2 things done today, right? I like wrote an email and I was on hold with minutes about, unemployment, right? Or 2 hours. That might have been a really productive day, right? Whereas in the past, that did not feel productive, right? So, I think, kind of maintaining that perspective of like, again, those baby steps, right? What can I do to move forward? I usually tell people when we're processing stuff really well, it sounds a lot like that serenity prayer from AA, right? Strength to change the things I can, oh my gosh, I just completely blanked on it. With,
I know the gist of the next
yes,
one. It's like,
strength to change the things I can.
fuck the things I have no control
Ability to
over.
accept the things I have no control over, right? And the wisdom to know the difference, right? Because that's how life goes, right? There are going to be things that we can change, always. Right? I'm an existential person, which means like, how do we put the world together and make meaning, right? And so there's always, something we can choose, even if it's just, am I on my, feet or am I on my knees, right? As I do this thing, right? What's my attitude going into this, right? So there's always something we can choose. So it's figuring out, what can we change? What can we not? How do we let go of that stuff that we can't? And not hold ourselves to unrealistic standards. I mean, I wasn't super productive today because I didn't take 8 client calls, or I didn't call 3 bars, or I didn't do this or that, right? Because it might not be possible right now. Make those small things to be able to help us get there, right? Not to be, as Mark said, she's doing a really good job, right? Of maybe not to be stuck, right? To feel like, oh my gosh, my family, they're gonna maybe hate it if I can't come. But how do I, try to find some ways to connect with them individually, right? And say, oh, there is some movement in there. It's not just always one or the other. So very long-winded discussion, but that's some stuff.
We just have the best guests every time. I'm like, man, this is awesome.
You really do.
I am gonna go rogue though on our final question. Is that okay, Christina?
Yeah, I was already like, I don't want that question anymore.
So that was a really like great way to like positively spin the things that we should do. I want to reiterate the fact that if you are one of those people listening to the podcast and you are feeling a little stuck, please go to our website, pleasehustleresponsibly.org. We have so many resources for you. If therapy's not your thing, we have other resources as well. If you look over our website and you don't actually see what you're looking for, just shoot us an email and we will find it for you, okay? Please do not hesitate to reach out, especially within these winter months. We're here for you. But with that being said, this is going to be our last podcast of 2020. So I would like to end this podcast with what are 3 positive things that you have either learned or accomplished or have done in 2020 that makes you feel good and that you're going to move forward with in the following year? I know, I just dropped a bomb.
Who's gonna start?
Matt Cole, you go. I feel like you've achieved so much this year.
I mean, I guess so, but now I feel like I'm put on the spot, so I can't think of anything. I guess like three things. Like definitely allowing myself more freedom to just exist, I think is huge for me. I think that's something that we can all relate to. Just, I guess, and that overall like comes with like being kinder to myself, and I think that's important for me and for everyone. I definitely want to keep my my focus on being more physically active going, because that's been a really positive change for me. It's definitely really changed like my mental energy and my physical energy, and I just feel better overall. But I think like the most positive thing for myself in the past year is that I like, as of right now, I'm 9 months that I haven't had a drink, and that's been pretty fucking great. So I'm gonna keep that momentum going into the new year and just keep prioritizing the things that are better for me.
Absolutely. See, that sounds great. Those are all awesome things, you know? And just
Yeah,
like though, but proud of you, bud.
thank
Yeah.
you.
So,
Thank you. What about you, Megs? What are your three things?
My three things. I have learned how to set better boundaries, and I need to take that moving forward. Especially like in this new virtual world, I feel like people expect you to kind of forever be available, and I've always been the person that is available 24/7, and that's just not realistic. So I'm making sure that I set hard boundaries, making sure that I prioritize myself and my personal life more than I ever have before, because I was the type of person that kind of gave everything to like my job and the people that I worked for and everything else, and didn't really take the time to even check in with myself. So that like that sounds corny, but it's very important to me moving forward. And also I hate to say this, but I'm going to say it. Meditation has really kind of changed my life, especially during this COVID time. And I know people say it's a practice. It is a practice. It's something that you have to actively do every day and work towards. But it's really kind of helped me with the mental health challenges that I've faced throughout this time. So for me, for the first time in my life, I'm going to go into 2021 focusing more on myself. And also something that this is four, sorry. I've realized
yeah,
to,
get it, girl.
I've realized to use my empathy as a tool. I've been told by a lot of people that that could be one of my biggest downfalls, but I'm going to harness it and foster it as one of my greatest strengths, and really kind of focus that energy into the community that we have, and especially making the food and beverage industry a better place to come back to after all of this. So I'm feeling positive, guys. I'm feeling annoyingly positive.
Good.
I love that. I love that so much.
DJ,
Sure.
what?
Yeah. How about I'll tell a little bit about myself. I'll kind of just give some overall stuff so to kind of help everybody move forward, right? For me, I think I am trying to be grateful for all the patience that I've learned this year. It is not one of those it's not one of those skills that's easy to learn, but I think it's been forced upon all of us. And as much as this sucks, I'm sure there's some time in the future I'm going to be standing in line in the grocery store and flipping out because the cashier's going super slow and somebody wants quarters. And I go, well, if I made it through 2020, I can make it through this line at Jewel. So I'm trying to keep that in perspective a little bit, right? Of like even these difficult things as you're doing them, it's building skills, right? It's building new tools and new muscles to help you be able to move into balance later in life. And trying to see, some of the setbacks or some of the harder times is that. I think kind of moving into 2021, I really love the question, Max. One of the things that I remember from a few years ago when I was at some retreat or something, we were getting ready to go to the new year. And one of the things they were saying was like, why are you waiting on your New Year's resolution? And I was like, what? And it's like December or something. They're like, why are you waiting? And it's like, what's going to flip the switch, right, in 2021, right? And kind of how it was like the golden ticket thing. One of the really helpful things I found is like, whatever that thing is that you want to start trying to do next year, move in that direction, right? Start taking some baby steps now, right? If I'm saying next year I'm going to start, dieting, or I'm going to become a vegetarian, right? Now is maybe a great time for me to start cutting out beef or start eating more vegetables, right? If I'm saying, next year I want to learn more or like go back to school, right now is a great time for me to start, maybe looking up programs or looking up classes or looking up things that I'm interested in, right? So, help yourself out, right? Start getting that ball rolling, right? I think is a really big one. I think the other thing Max said is really important too, right? For me, taking those different parts of myself and moving into balance, right? What's going on in my head, what's going on in my body, what's going on in my feelings, right? They can be all kind of places, right? And spiritually, am I connected? Because, there can be pros and cons in that. I joke sometimes, say, if I slam the door in somebody's face, I feel really good about that emotionally because F you. But logically, I'm like, oh, that was my boss, not a good decision. And my partner is going to be super mad at me because I lost my job. Right? There might be some other stuff in there that helps me balance that out. Bringing those different parts of myself together. And then I'm going to steal a line from Ta-Nehisi Coates, who has a really great book called Between the World and Me. If you haven't read it, they just turned it into an HBO series, show, something like that. But I tell people, right, it's about that authentic self, right? Who I am at my best mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And then realizing that there's layers on top of that, right? There's family and there's friends and then there's my job. And everybody has a different idea of what the best DJ looks like, right? There's society who tells me what I should be as a male or as gay or as cis or as trans or as whatever that is, right? That there's all these layers, right? And there is my real self. I can't just go out there in the world and act like those things don't exist. And, trying to move into those baby steps to navigate that. Ta-Nehisi Coates says, this is your body, your country, and your world. And you have to find some way to live within all of those things, right? And I think that's really what, kind of that balance is, right? It's trying to find those little things that can be helpful, right? Maybe I'm used to being in the service industry and feeling really connected to people. And all of a sudden I'm at home by myself all the time, right? And I'm missing some of that, connection feeling. And so, meditating or having plants or things that reminds me that I'm still some ways connected or that the world is bigger than me is really helpful. And again, not a bad thing, not a good thing, right? Just it's finding that thing that works for you, right? Remember that there's something out there. So I will shut up because I probably talked too much. That's my thoughts.
No, you did not. For me, I think that there's a lot of things that I'm super grateful from this year. And I also love this question. I think about it a lot, actually, because I'm a huge pessimist, but I also do have some optimistic moments. So I'm like, well, there's some good things that have come out of 2020. And I think a lot of the three things for me is definitely that sense of community that Mags was talking about. I think it's just so beautiful and powerful, and we can't get anything done without each other. And I hope that stays. I've taken this time to really start advocating for myself and standing up for myself. And I've talked about this before. It's been a messy process and feels rebellious at times, but I'm going to take it with me. I'm going to keep saying how I feel and being honest about who I am, because nobody's business but mine. And then I just started doing things that I'm passionate about again, doing things that I want to do instead of only focusing on what's gonna pay my bills and really just bring me stress and give me something to bitch about every day. So I'm focusing on things that really make me happy, making weird fruit murals and just spending way too much time on it. That's good.
That's good. I'm very happy to hear that, Christina, and I look forward to seeing everything you do in the future, especially with your photography. Because if you haven't seen Christina Veltri's photography, it's very impressive.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time, especially you, DJ, for always sharing your just brilliant wisdom with us. I feel blessed to have you on here, be able to give these folks some tools that they need to withstand this holiday season. And also, it's just always nice to talk to you. So
Thank you for having me. It's great seeing you guys' faces. It was so much fun. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, thank you for having me. I'll be back anytime.
Thanks, DJ.
All right, everybody, thank you so much. From the support staff team to you, please have a great holiday season. Feel free to check out our YouTube channel, our educational platform, and our website at pleasehustleresponsibly.org. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the beginning of January.